Nkechi had always felt different from the rest of her family. Her siblings were rich, spoiled, and treated her like she didn't belong. She was quiet and kind, but they never respected her. When they planned a big vacation to Zanzibar, she was excited. Maybe this time they would treat her like family. Maybe this trip would bring them closer. But as soon as they arrived, her heart sank. While everyone else relaxed and enjoyed the beautiful resort, she was given tasks. She had to carry their bags, serve their drinks, and do whatever they asked. It didn't feel like a vacation for her. It felt like she had been brought along just to be their servant. Nkechi had dreamed of this trip for weeks. She had imagined walking on the soft white sand, feeling the ocean breeze on her face, and finally having a chance to bond with her family. But from the moment they arrived, she realized she was nothing more than a servant to them. While her siblings relaxed by the beach, sipping expensive cocktails, Nkechi was running back and forth, bringing them drinks. The waiters at the resort were treated with more respect than she was. "Hurry up, Nkechi, you're so slow," her brother snapped when she didn't bring his drink fast enough. She wanted to remind him that she was his sister, not his maid, but she kept quiet. Every time they went shopping, her sisters would buy expensive clothes and jewelry. Nkechi didn't even have money to buy a simple souvenir for herself. And yet, she was the one carrying all their heavy shopping bags, struggling under the weight, while they laughed and took pictures. "You should be grateful we even brought you," her stepmother sneered when she sighed in exhaustion. Nkechi forced a smile, but inside, she felt like crying. At night, while her family slept in a luxurious private villa with a breathtaking ocean view, Nkechi was sent to sleep in the tiny staff quarters. The room was cramped, hot and uncomfortable, with only a small, hard bed. She could hear the sound of the waves outside, reminding her of what she was missing. She stared at the ceiling, her heart heavy with pain. Was this what family was supposed to feel like? One evening, after a long day of running errands for her siblings, Nkechi sat alone in a quiet corner of the resort. She watched as her family laughed and enjoyed their expensive dinner, not once calling her to join them. The humiliation was unbearable. A waiter passed by and looked at her with pity. "Are you okay, miss?" he asked kindly. Nkechi nodded, forcing back tears, but deep inside, something was breaking. The resort was glowing with golden lights as the waiters set the tables for a grand dinner. The air was filled with laughter and the delicious smell of food. Nkechi watched as her family sat at the long, elegant table, chatting happily. They were dressed in the latest designer outfits, their jewelry sparkling under the lights. Nkechi, however, wore a faded dress, one she had owned for years. It wasn't fancy like her sister's dresses, but it was the best she had. She had spent all day running errands for them, making sure everything was perfect for this dinner. Now, she was tired and hungry. As the waiters brought out steaming plates of food, Nkechi finally felt a little hopeful. Maybe this time, she could sit with them and enjoy a meal. Maybe for once they would treat her like family. Her stomach growled as she reached for a plate, but before she could take it, a firm hand grabbed her wrist. She looked up, confused, and met her father's cold eyes. "Let the real guests eat first," he said. His voice was calm, but his words cut deeper than a knife. Nkechi froze. She looked around the table. No one defended her. No one even looked surprised. It was as if they truly saw her as nothing more than a servant, not their own daughter and sister. Tears burned in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She swallowed the lump in her throat and stepped back. She had done everything for them. She had carried their bags, served their drinks, and obeyed every command. Yet, they couldn't even let her eat. As she stood there, watching them enjoy their expensive meal, a painful thought filled her mind. Am I even their daughter? For the first time in her life, she felt completely alone. Nkechi sat alone in a quiet corner of the resort, staring at the ocean. Her heart felt heavy. The grand dinner had just ended, and her family was still laughing and enjoying themselves. She hadn't eaten. She hadn't even been allowed to sit with them. She wiped away a tear, trying to stay strong. But deep inside, something was breaking. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen. It was an unknown number. For a moment, she thought about ignoring it. but something told her to pick up. "Hello?" she answered, her voice tired. "Miss Nkechi?" A man's voice came through the line. "This is Barrister Adderwale. I've been trying to reach you for weeks. It's about your late grandmother's estate. We need to discuss something urgent." Nkechi sat up straight. Her heart pounded. "Estate?" she repeated, confused. "What estate?" There was a pause. Then the lawyer spoke again, his tone serious. "Your grandmother left you a large inheritance, a house in Lagos, several properties, and a significant amount of money. Everything belongs to you." Nkechi felt dizzy. She gripped the phone tighter. "That can't be right," she whispered. "My family never told me anything about this." The lawyer sighed. "That's the problem, Miss Nkechi. Your family has been trying to take the estate from you. They attempted to forge documents, but we caught them in time. I need you to come to Lagos immediately to claim what's yours." Nkechi's whole world shifted in that moment. She had spent years being treated like a nobody. She had been humiliated, ignored, and used like a servant. All this time, she'd believed she was worthless. But now, she knew the truth. She wasn't poor. She wasn't powerless. She was rich, and her family had lied to her. Her hands shook as she ended the call. She looked up and saw her family still laughing, still treating her like nothing. They had stolen from her. They had kept her inheritance a secret. And now, they were enjoying a luxury vacation while she suffered. A fire lit inside her. For the first time in her life, she wasn't going to stay silent. For the first time, the tables were about to turn. Nkechi's hands were shaking as she walked away from the noisy resort. She needed a quiet place, somewhere to think, somewhere to breathe. She found a bench near the beach and quickly dialed the number back. Her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear the ringing. The lawyer picked up on the first ring. "Miss Nkechi, thank you for calling back. I've been trying to reach you for weeks." Weeks. Nobody had told her. She swallowed hard. "What is this about my grandmother's estate?" There was a pause. Then the lawyer's voice came, calm but serious. "Your grandmother left everything to you, Nkechi. Her house in Lagos, several other properties, a large sum of money in her savings. You are the legal owner of it all." Nkechi felt like the ground beneath her had disappeared. She pressed a hand to her chest. I don't understand. My family never told me she had anything," the lawyer sighed, "because they didn't want you to know. They tried to take it from you. They attempted to forge documents to claim the estate as theirs, but we stopped them just in time." Nkechi gasped. Her own family, the people she had loved and served all her life. Her mind raced back to every moment of the trip, carrying their bags, serving their drinks, sleeping in the tiny staff quarters, being treated like a servant while they enjoyed luxury. All this time, they had been keeping a huge secret from her. They had stolen from her, used her, lied to her. Her fingers clenched around her phone as anger, hurt, and disbelief filled her chest. How could they do this? How could they look her in the eyes every day and still act like she was nothing? But she was not nothing. She was rich. She was powerful. And they had no idea that she now knew the truth. For the first time in her life, Nkechi wasn't going to stay silent. The game had changed. And this time, she was the one holding all the cards. Nkechi sat frozen, gripping her phone so tightly her knuckles turned white. The words of the lawyer echoed in her head. Her family had stolen from her, lied to her, used her like a maid while keeping her inheritance a secret. Her chest burned with anger, betrayal, and pain. She had always known they treated her differently, but this was beyond cruelty. They had made her believe she was worthless. They had humiliated her, ignored her, and forced her to serve them like a nobody, all while enjoying the wealth that rightfully belonged to her. Tears welled up in her eyes, but this time they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of rage. Her whole life, she had tried to please them. She had done everything they asked, hoping for love, for acceptance. But now, she saw the truth. They had never cared about her. To them, she was just someone to use, someone to control. Her stepmother's cruel smirk, her father's cold words, her siblings' selfish laughter. Every painful memory came rushing back like fire in her veins. "They think I'm nothing," Nkechi whispered to herself, her voice shaking. She stood up slowly, her heart pounding like a drum. Let's see how they feel when the tables turn. For the first time in her life, she wasn't going to stay silent. She wasn't going to beg for love. She wasn't going to let them walk over her anymore. They thought they had won, but they had no idea what was coming. Nkechi wiped her tears and took a deep breath. The pain in her heart was still there, but something had changed. She was no longer weak. She was no longer the girl who let them treat her like a servant. She was done being the quiet, obedient one. Her family had stolen from her, lied to her, and humiliated her, but they had no idea what was coming next. With steady steps, she walked back to the grand dinner. The laughter, the clinking of glasses, the fancy conversations, they all continued as if nothing had happened. But for Nkechi, everything had changed. She didn't lower her eyes. She didn't hesitate. She walked straight to the large dining table and pulled out the chair at the head. The chair where her father usually sat. The room fell silent. All eyes turned to her. Her stepmother's face twisted in annoyance. "What are you doing?" she asked sharply. Nkechi ignored her. She picked up a glass, poured herself some wine, and took a slow sip. Then, in a calm, steady voice, she said the words that would shake the entire family. "I just found out I'm rich. Richer than all of you." Her father choked on his drink. Her stepmother's fork slipped from her fingers. Her siblings looked at her, eyes wide with disbelief. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the invisible one. She wasn't the servant. She wasn't the unwanted child in the corner. She was the one with the power. Her brother forced a laugh. "What are you talking about? Stop joking." Nkechi smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. She reached into her bag and pulled out the legal documents the lawyer had just sent her. She placed them on the table, one by one. Her father's face turned pale as he read the papers. Her stepmother grabbed them, her hands shaking. This isn't possible," she stammered. Nkechi leaned back in her chair. "Oh, it's very possible," she said. "And guess what? I also know how you tried to steal it from me." The silence in the room was heavy. No one dared to speak. The same family that had treated her like a nobody now sat frozen, powerless. For the first time, Nkechi saw fear in their eyes, and it felt good. Nkechi watched as her father coughed, struggling to swallow his drink. Her stepmother's face lost all colour, her hands shaking as she clutched her fork. Her siblings looked at each other, their once arrogant faces now filled with confusion and fear. She had never seen them like this before. "You're lying," her brother finally said, forcing a laugh. "This is some kind of joke, right?" Nkechi didn't reply. Instead, she reached into her bag and pulled out the papers. Thick official documents with bold letters and legal seals. She placed them on the table, right in front of her father. Silence. The sound of the ocean waves outside was the only thing filling the tense air. Her father picked up the papers with trembling hands. His eyes moved over the words, scanning them frantically. His lips parted, but no words came out. Her stepmother snatched the documents from him, her hands shaking as she read. "No, this can't be true," she whispered. Nkechi simply leaned back in her chair, watching them. For years they had ignored her. They had treated her like a maid, a burden, someone who didn't belong. And now they finally saw her. "You tried to steal this from me," she said, her voice calm but firm. "You lied. You hid it from me. And now you have nothing." Her siblings looked lost, like children who had just realized they were in trouble. Her brother cleared his throat. "Nkechi, we can explain." But she raised a hand, stopping him. "No need," she said. "I understand everything now." More silence, heavy, uncomfortable. For the first time in her life, Nkechi wasn't the one feeling small. They were. Nkechi watched as her once proud family crumbled before her eyes. Just moments ago, they were treating her like a nobody. Now, they were desperate. Her father cleared his throat and forced a smile. "Nkechi, my daughter, you don't understand. We were going to tell you about the inheritance." Her stepmother quickly nodded, placing a shaky hand on her chest. "Yes, my dear, we didn't want to burden you with such matters. We were only protecting you." Nkechi raised an eyebrow. Protecting her. The same people who had made her carry their bags, sleep in a tiny room and serve them like a maid. She crossed her arms. "Protecting me? Or stealing from me?" Her siblings suddenly jumped in. Her brother chuckled nervously. "Come on, Nkechi. Don't say it like that. We're family. We love you." Her younger sister wiped fake tears from her eyes. Yes, please don't be mad. You wouldn't turn your back on us, right? Nkechi almost laughed. A few minutes ago, she wasn't even allowed to eat at the same table as them. Now, she was their beloved sister. She leaned forward and looked them in the eyes. Oh, now I'm family. Now I'm important. What happened to let the real guests eat first? Her father swallowed hard. That was a mistake. We didn't mean it. Her stepmother grabbed her hand, squeezing it as if they had always been close. My dear, you must understand. We were under stress. Please don't do anything drastic. Nkechi pulled her hand away. Oh, you mean like stealing from your own daughter? Forging documents to take what wasn't yours? More silence. Her father rubbed his forehead. Look, Nkechi, we can fix this. We can be a happy family again. Just forget the past, and we'll move forward together. Her brother grinned, but his eyes were filled with fear. Yes, and now that you have money, we can even do business together. Nkechi shook her head. Business? She let out a small laugh. So that's what this is about. You don't care about me. You just don't want to lose access to money. The fake smiles faded. The fear in their eyes grew. They knew she had caught them. For years they treated her like nothing, and now they wanted her to forget everything? Not a chance. Nkechi looked around the table, taking in the shocked faces of her family. Just moments ago, they had been treating her like a nobody. Now, they were desperate, scrambling for words, trying to undo years of cruelty with fake apologies. She let the silence stretch, enjoying the way her father's hands trembled as he gripped his glass. Her stepmother's forced smile was slipping, and her siblings kept looking at each other, hoping someone would say the right thing to make her forgive them. But there was nothing they could say, nothing that would erase the way they had treated her. Nkechi took a deep breath, then slowly stood up. The sound of her chair scraping against the floor felt final, like the closing of a chapter. She adjusted the elegant scarf around her shoulders, a quiet reminder that she was no longer the weak, forgotten girl they had once controlled. Then, with a small, knowing smile, she said, "Since I was just your maid, I'll leave you to clean up after yourselves." Her stepmother gasped. Her brother's mouth dropped open. "Nkechi, wait!" Her father started, but she was already turning away. She walked toward the exit of the restaurant, her head held high, her heels clicking against the polished floor. Behind her, chaos erupted. Her stepmother's voice rose, desperate and panicked. "You can't just leave like this. We're family." Her brother muttered, "This isn't happening. This can't be happening." Her father, always so proud, always so in control, sounded small for the first time. "We made a mistake. Please, let's fix this." Nkechi didn't even pause. She stepped outside, breathing in the warm night air. The sound of crashing waves filled the silence left by her family's betrayal. For years, she had been begging for their love, their acceptance. For years, she had bent over backward, trying to prove her worth. But she didn't need their approval anymore. She had power now. She had freedom. And most importantly, she had the last word. As she walked toward her private suite, her real suite, not the tiny servant quarters they had forced her into, she felt lighter than she had in years. She didn't need revenge in the form of screaming or fighting. This was sweeter. This was the kind of revenge that lasted, because she knew deep down they would never forget this night, the night they lost her forever. Nkechi stepped off the plane in Lagos, breathing in the familiar air. But this time, everything felt different. She was no longer the forgotten daughter, the family's servant, or the girl desperate for love. She was a woman with power, a woman who had taken back what was hers. The next morning, she walked into the lawyer's office, ready to claim her inheritance. The documents were placed in front of her, proving that she now owned a multi-million-dollar property, businesses, and investments that her grandmother had left behind. Nkechi ran her fingers over the papers, still unable to believe it. All these years, she had struggled, thinking she had nothing, while her own family had been living off her wealth, but no more. With determination in her heart, she took control. She met with business advisors, learned about her assets, and made smart decisions. Soon, she wasn't just managing her inheritance, she was growing it. She turned her grandmother's estate into something even bigger, opening new businesses and investing wisely. The name Nkechi was now respected in the business world, not just as an heir, but as a powerful woman who built her own empire. But while she was rising, her family was falling. Her father's business began to struggle. Without Nkechi's quiet financial help, things fell apart quickly. Her stepmother, once so confident and cruel, found herself drowning in debts. Her siblings, who had mocked and humiliated her, now had no one to rely on. And then the calls started. First, it was her stepmother. "Nkechi, dear, you know we've always loved you. We made some mistakes, but we're still family. Can we meet?" She didn't answer. Then her brother sent a message. "Hey sis, things are tough right now. Could you lend me some money? I'll pay you back, I swear." She didn't reply. Her father, once so strong and full of pride, left her a voicemail. "Nkechi, please, let's talk." She deleted it. They had never seen her as family before, only as someone to use. Now, they wanted her back, not because they loved her, but because they needed her money. But Nkechi had learned her lesson. She surrounded herself with people who truly cared for her, friends, mentors, and business partners who respected her for who she was, not for what she could give them. One evening, as she sat in her luxurious Lagos apartment, sipping tea and watching the sunset, she smiled. She had lost her family, but she had gained something far more important: self-respect, success, and freedom. Her family had made their choice long ago, and now she had made hers. She was never looking back. Years passed, and the world changed. Nkechi's name was everywhere: business magazines, TV interviews, and social media. She had built a powerful empire, not just from the inheritance her grandmother left, but from her own hard work, intelligence, and resilience. People admired her story, a woman who had risen from betrayal and humiliation to become a force to be reckoned with. But while Nkechi's star was rising, her family's world was falling apart. Her father's business crumbled under bad decisions and unpaid debts. His once booming company was now nothing but an empty office space, abandoned by employees who had not been paid in months. He had been too proud to ask Nkechi for help at first, but when he had no choice, he reached out. "Nkechi, I was wrong. I see that now. Please, help me rebuild." She never responded. Her stepmother, the woman who once sneered at her and treated her like a servant, was exposed for fraud. The same greed that had led her to steal from Nkechi had now brought her downfall. She was arrested, and the family's name, once respected, became a joke. Her siblings, who once mocked her, were now jobless, struggling to survive. One by one they sent messages, apologies, excuses, desperate cries for help. "Nkechi, we were just kids. We didn't know better. You have so much now. Can't you forgive us? We're still family, aren't we?" But family wasn't just about blood. It was about love, respect, and loyalty, things they had never given her. One day, she walked past her father's former office building, the same place where, years ago, he had refused to let her eat at the dinner table because she wasn't a real guest. Now he was nothing, and she was everything he wished he had. She smiled. "The maid you humiliated is now the one you wish you had treated better." But she didn't feel anger anymore, only peace, because true revenge wasn't about making them suffer. It was about proving to herself that she was always worthy, always enough. Nkechi had found happiness, not in their downfall, but in her own strength, and that was the greatest victory of all.